Hey everybody, Taz from Critical Thinking Anarchist here. So, this has come into my attention the last couple days. What the hell is a shipper in fandom? So, I've heard the phrase ship it or ship them or some variant for a few years now. It was always in my periphery that there were people who wanted certain couples to hook up and get married. In terms of comics, for decades we knew it was going to be Lois and Clark, or Mary Jane and Peter Parker, or Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle. Granted, in comics, as new writers and artists would come in and alternate storylines took place, you had different versions of the couples. Wonder Woman and Superman, Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker, Bruce Wayne and Silver St. Cloud. In television, this has often been a thing as well. Similar to comics, we've seen the on-screen romances of Lois and Clark in Lois and Clark, or Bruce and Selena in Gotham. However, a more contemporary non-comic favorite would be Jim and Pam from The Office. They had such good chemistry from the start that you actually wanted to see the actors get together. They didn't, of course, but within the show, Dwight has a fantastic line.
I think they both could do better.
Oddly enough, they really did. Jenna Fischer was married to James Gunn for a long time, now divorced and is married to Lee Kirk, who is a screenwriter and has done stuff. I'm sure he's a decent guy. But John Krasinski married Emma Blunt, who is an incredibly famous actress and seems an absolute sweetheart. So again, they both oddly did better. If the internet were then how it is now, there would have been shippers all over the place on The Office and trying to take down the other people, the real life actors. A shipper is a fan who apparently has nothing better to do than watch TV shows and movies and worship couples. Again, many of us grew up with some sort of this. Many of us didn't find out until years and even decades later that the real life actors never hooked up, although many did depending on their statuses at the time of filming. By that time, we had long since moved on and had real-life worries to deal with. Now, I have no problem with people delving into the fantasy worlds of television and movies. They are there for that purpose, to escape real life, get lost in these worlds, and have issues that are not our lives, and we can just enjoy them. Only these shippers don't leave that fantasy world. They believe that fantasy and reality are intertwined. They don't separate on-screen fictional characters from real-life actors. They actually believe that John Krasinski is Jim Halpert, that Jenna Fischer is Pam Beesly. So currently there is a thing that's going on with The Flash right now. Now, back in 2015, we have The Flash cast reveals what they really think of shippers. And this is taken from MTV, written October 2nd, 2015. And in it, Danielle Panabaker and Candice Patton discuss, how they feel about this whole thing with fans tweeting at them and sending them emails and whatever else, fan mail and things like that. And they talk about how it's awesome and scary at the same time, because at this time in 2015, I believe the show was about 1 or 2 years in. So they're sitting there kind of going, okay, we've got these fans and it's great and they're passionate and it's wonderful, but some people are a little too passionate. And even Candice Patton says, the shipping thing is new to me, just as a human being, and to have that all bombarded at you every day. Sometimes it's disappointing to see how vitriolic it can get. To be clear, shipping, like most fandom, can go both ways. The Flash crew has seen their fair share of passionate supporters, but some sections of the population haven't been as kind. It's disappointing for me because we're just trying to write a great show and be part of a great show, Patton continued. We're so much more than shipping. Our characters in particular, as women, are so much more than the men that we're associated with. So basically what she's saying is, while she appreciates the fandom and while she gets that people want them to be dating within the show and possibly in real life, she's like, we want to have independent storylines and independent characters aside from who they're with. I think we've seen a lot of that this year with Candice Patton and her character on The Flash, and it hasn't resounded well with fans because, of course, within the show of The Flash, her, spoilers, her and Barry are breaking up because her doppelganger, her mirror version of herself, is there more or less destroying the relationship. And people are seeing that and thinking that it's Danielle Panabaker's fault. But again, it's not Danielle Panabaker. The actress has nothing to do with the character. So again, this was back in 2015. Fast forward to June 9th, yesterday as of recording. Flash fans accuse actress Danielle Panabaker of racism. Call for her firing. This is from Bounding into Comics. Danielle Panabaker, along with other female stars of the CW-verse family of live-action DC superhero shows, have been accused by fans of the Arrowverse series of racism due to their acknowledgement of fan ships that paired Barry Allen with anyone other than Iris West. So, about a week ago, on June 3rd, this one particular Twitter user, goddamn if Twitter isn't the just absolute worst, but it's a sadly necessary evil for anything you want to do on YouTube and getting the word out to other people. It's the quickest way to do it. So, Twitter user SoftXiris authored an extensive multi-tweet thread claiming to reveal the untold truth of Danielle Panabaker and others undermining Candice Patton. So go down a little bit here, and the first thing she does is go, first, we're going to start off with the way Danielle has tried to undermine Candice. This first example will be her baiting Snowberry, a crack ship made out of racial discrimination against Candice. Here is the proof. So she links a couple different things from 2014. And this particular person here says, the ship name for Caitlin Snow and Barry Allen is now officially Snowberry. Tell all your friends. And she tags The Flash, Danielle Panabaker, and Grant Gustin. This was literally at the beginning and had nothing to do with Danielle Panabaker. It was some other fan linking this thing. Here is the first instance of Danielle baiting SB. Mind you, she openly admitted she saw the ship very early, which means she baited it whilst knowing the hate Candice got from them. Who was fucking hating this thing in 2014? In 2014, it was barely known what was going to happen. And not to mention that Caitlin Snow had her character, she was with Robbie Amell's character, Stephen Amell's brother from the Arrow. It wasn't actually, I mean, they're brothers in real life, not within the shows. But then she was in a relationship with him, and they became Firestorm. And then they left the show. His character was killed off, and the professor ended up going on Legends of Tomorrow. So for the first year plus, she was in a relationship and then grieving from that relationship. Now, while it's fun for the actors, I mean, and I don't know, I've never paid attention to their personal lives. I have no idea if Danielle Panabaker and Grant Gustin had a thing going on. I don't care. That's not anything about it. But she, again, this person is conflating the two. She is conflating the difference between the actors and their characters. Second instance, not only did she bait the ship, she always romanticized sexual assault. Imagine how her fans that were sexual assault survivors must have felt. Her fans still use that scene in romantic edits. Candice was also sitting right there. Again, the actors were talking about their fictional characters.
Fictional characters.
Third instance, keep that everyone loves a good love triangle quote in your mind. I'll come back later. So, okay, apparently this first one, or the second one, in this particular case, it was a love triangle between Barry and Caitlin and Iris. And I guess Caitlin made a reference to a love triangle and how everybody loves the love triangle. It is a trope in television. It is always there. There's always something that goes on where a guy has to pick between two different girls, or a girl has to pick between two different guys, or, you know, a guy and a girl, or two girls and a guy. I mean, whatever. It doesn't matter. You know, it's a very often a trope where it's missed opportunity, missed love, because it keeps the viewer hanging on. And it's worked. It's worked for decades. Again, going back to Lois and Clark from the 1990s, we saw Lois choose Lex over Clark first. In The Office, we saw Pam choose Roy. So this isn't new. This is something that constantly happens. If you pay attention at all to television and sometimes movies, this is always there. Because then when it does hit, when the people do get together, you're just like, finally. Because if it happens right away, then there's no suspense. There's no tension. And part of that thing, you know, part of that love triangle is the will they, won't they? Who will they choose? You know, will it be this person or will it be this person? And when you have two fantastic people, you know, you've got Danielle Panabaker and you got Candice Patton, You got Iris West and you have Caitlin Snow. They're fun characters. So you want to watch because it doesn't matter who Barry chooses. Now, we all knew he was going to choose Iris. It was never a question. There was never any doubt that it was always going to be Iris within the show. But the fact that this particular person, 6 years later, has decided, oh my God, this is the problem. And Danielle Panabaker is a racist because of it, because Candice Patton is black. Like, at no point does she mention her race. At no point is she like, well, I'm white, so Barry's going to choose me. It doesn't fucking happen. Fourth instance, she continuously brings up Caitlin's friendship with Barry and paints it as a romantic relationship, but only refers to Caitlin's relationship with Cisco as platonic. Why? Again, who cares? She is trying. She's at a Comic-Con trying to talk about her character and her storyline and trying to discuss what she can discuss, what is there, what is written, what has already been filmed, and try to prevent future storylines from going on. Because even when they know, they can't say anything. Now we're going to move on to her tweets where she was promoted Caitlin and Barry, as well as even Barry and Patty, but never Barry and Iris. Again, this is from 6 years ago. November 25th, 2014. On a scale from 1 to 10, how much Snowberry are we going to see tonight? So the particular person specifically asks for the coupling of Caitlin Snow and Barry. And again, this is 6 years ago. And she replies, more than you've seen in previous episodes. That is a very vague answer. All it's saying is, you're going to see some. I don't know exactly. I haven't gone back through the Flash to go back and go, well, what was going on before this in season 1? So I don't know this particular episode what was going to happen or what did happen. But again, it's a very vague, very safe answer. More than you've seen in previous episodes. That could mean 3 seconds. That could mean the entire episode is them just banging each other. Again, it doesn't matter. The reality is, this is 6 years ago about fictional characters.
Fictional characters.
Third tweet. This tweet has only made last year, further enabling even more hate from SB towards Candice, even after it's clear Barry and Iris are endgame. Did someone say karaoke? And, I mean, who cares? They had karaoke. What does that have to do with anything? It's just them singing karaoke together. That tells us nothing. For the next examples, we're going to move on to her trying to ignore and erase Candice's part in She-Authority. For example, in which she gives full credit to Katie Lotz and Katie Cassidy for She-Authority, when in fact, Katie hadn't joined till much later, and it was Katie and Candice. So Katie Cassidy hadn't joined till much later, and it was Katie Lotz and Candice Patton. I have no idea what She-Authority is. I'm not into the whole Flash fandom. I don't deep dive into this thing. I like the show. I think it's fun. It's the best one that's on CW right now, but that doesn't say much at this point. But when you're talking a few years ago, and she, so in this particular small article, they talk about the whole Me Too movement and getting paid equal pay and the discrepancy between men and women and everything. So it was trying to get better on screen time, more pay, better pay in comparison to their male counterparts and all that fun stuff. And again, I haven't looked into this, so I don't know how much Candice was a part of it. And it may have been that her and Candice were having trouble on The Flash, where Katie Lotz and Katie Cassidy are from other shows. Katie Lotz was in Arrow and then moved on to become the star of Legends of Tomorrow. It might have been less the fact that Candice didn't have anything to do with it, and more the fact that they were on the same show together and had the same problem. And so they went outside the show to other people and said, hey, how did you deal with this problem? I'm not entirely sure. But without explaining that, you can't just say, well, here's Danielle Panabaker again. She's throwing Candice Patton under the bus and saying, oh, you're just a worthless piece of shit. And then she goes into, she just continues on and on and on about this whole thing. And now we're going to move into racist behavior. And if you look at the tweets, there's nothing racist about Danielle's tweets. She's standing up for her friends. She's saying, hey, they made a stupid joke and it got them fired. And then she supposedly dated a white supremacist, but Danielle says they didn't date. It was only an on-set thing. But she's like, well, it's not, doesn't look very much like it's a set. They film outside all the time. You know, it's not like they're in a sound stage. Most of the time, they're not in a sound stage when they're not in the Star Labs. They're usually outside in Vancouver. So it's probably that they were on set somewhere. Then she goes into the whole George Floyd thing, and I don't really care. That's a whole other thing. Now, per the title, I insinuated I was going to include others, so let's talk about Chantal Vancidem. Who cares? Chantal Vancidem was another character on this whole thing, and was Patty, and apparently she got together with Barry for a minute. Doesn't matter. And then she tries to throw Katie Lotz into this whole thing. Katie Lotz is even sitting there saying, Candice would never be erased, and no one is trying to. Please don't use this page to tear down other women. We work so hard to make it safe and positive space. It breaks my heart to see all this drama perpetuating the cycle of pinning women against each other. Break the cycle. You know, she's sitting there like, this is not, you know, none of these people are the problem. You guys just have your fandom, and your fandom is the problem here. But she's not saying that because she doesn't want people to hate her. She doesn't want people to stop watching the shows. They already have enough problem with that. But Katie Lotz is saying, hey, we're good. You know, the actors are all good here. We love each other. We've got good relationships. Whatever you think is going on is not going on. And then she goes, and then we're going to talk to Emily Bett Rickards. Now, Emily Bett Rickards was Felicity Smoke on The Arrow and did a fair amount of crossover stuff. And again, she goes into conflating the difference between characters, fictional characters.
Okay, you're talking about fictional characters. Fictional characters. Am I getting through to you at all?
And the actual actors. So Emily Bett Rickards is trying to talk about how the actors, or how the characters, are all interacting with each other and within the storyline. And again, this is from 2014, 2015 that this is, you know, that she's quoting here. This is from 6 years ago. And then you've got all these other people who are like, oh, thanks, I had no idea that they're pieces of shit. It's like, no, you guys are the pieces of shit. You know, and they bring up the Hartley Sawyer thing. And Hartley Sawyer had 9-year-old tweets that were incredibly, incredibly stupid jokes. So again, that was mostly one person, but as you saw later in the end there, that you had a bunch of other people stepping in as well and going, wow, we didn't know Danielle was a racist. And again, they didn't point out any examples that pretend that she was racist. Maybe she dated a white supremacist. We have no idea whether they did or not. And even if they did, perhaps the reason they broke up was because she found out, oh shit, he's a white supremacist. But who cares? That's not our problem. But these people are constantly conflating the fictional characters and the actual actors. They literally don't understand the difference between fantasy and reality and believe that on-screen goings-on and them talking about their characters and their stories at fan events and even online have anything to do with real life. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you think I entertained you enough or made you think about things differently. Ring the notification bell and follow me on social media.